Hi, this is Steve from LZ23 Strength, where we exert ourselves, we elevate our health, and we evolve in mind and body. Today, we're going to be talking about a pretty serious subject, and it's one that deals with one of the pillars of health span. We focus a lot here on the four pillars of health span. We talk all things health and longevity, but a lot of times we focus on the four pillars. First being exercise, working out. Second being sleep. Third being diet and nutrition. And the fourth one, we've talked about it, but not at length. And in general, I don't think it's discussed a lot on YouTube and podcasts, but it's a very important one. Is dealing with relationships and community, which add to a sense of purpose in our lives. And it has a lot to do with health span and longevity, especially in the blue zones that are studied more, where a lot of centenarians, easy to say, centenarians live. I know there's a little controversy sometimes on record keeping, but they're long-lived individuals in these blue zones, and a lot has to do with their relationships with family and friendships, community. So it's something that we do well to give attention to. And there's different things that are happening that affect that currently. Like right now, there's what's called an epidemic of loneliness, and that's what we're going to focus our attention on. And if you immediately say I'm not lonely and you want to turn off, I understand, but it's important to hope you stay and learn a little bit about what's going on with your fellow man, because it's certainly something that we all do well to give attention to. Hopefully, we're not in that position, but if we are, we'll talk about some things that perhaps can help, but then also what we can do to help our fellow man, help our friends, help our family, co-workers, neighbors, whoever we know that might be in such a position. Why this is important, I've quoted this individual before, Jim Rohn. He was a personal growth coach back in the day, and he made this comment that is very, very profound. Said, each of us need all of us, and all of us need each of us. And he was talking, emphasizing how it's a collective effort. He was talking specifically at that point dealing with economies, but in all aspects of having a society, was showing that we need each other. And I'm going to throw in there, we each of us needs all of us, and all of us needs each of us to have a good health span and longevity. So we need human connection. It has a powerful impact and for our well-being. And so it's good to give attention to these things with having that inherent need for connection. It's crucial to have happiness, health, and a sense of purpose. And again, that's all going to lead to a good health span and longevity. So it's interesting, the U.S. Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, he said that this was back in 2023, in the spring of 2023, and there's still headlines occasionally. You'll see news stories dealing with the loneliness epidemic. And it's not just somebody feeling bad or having a slight sense of loneliness at times. He said it represents a major public health risk, both for individuals and for society. And actually, I don't know if it was him or somebody else compared it, the health possibilities, comparing it to somebody smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That was the comparison that was made, because people will suffer mental issues with it, depression. They'll could suffer cardiovascular diseases with it, and other things that could be happening because of experiencing loneliness. And you might ask, well, who's lonely? Our first thought might go to the elderly, and there's definitely a risk of loneliness there, but it's not who you might expect. People between the ages of 30 and 44 were the loneliest group, and then a good chunk of that group said that they were frequently or always lonely. Okay, well, that's an eye opener. How about next? Would it be the elderly? Well, no. Actually, the next was 18 to 29-year-olds. Wow. That, That's a shocker too. And if you go on, actually, the elderly was the last group to be considered lonely. And what does it feel like to be lonely? Well, it's somewhat of a perception or a perceived isolation that individuals have. So there's some mental health issue in there. But then there's also another aspect of it, having inadequate, meaningful connections. So you don't literally have to be isolated, where some might think, well, if somebody lives far away from their family or friends and not they're kind of shy, they don't make new friends easily, they could be isolated and could understand a sense of loneliness. But a lot of loneliness involves people who are around people. Like one person in the survey experienced loneliness, says he has a lot of family members, but he doesn't feel appreciated at all by them. Another person was surrounded by other people who he said are only present in his life because he's useful to them. So they have these different ideas in mind, and there's so many things that could contribute to loneliness, but there's just a fundamental disconnect from others and from the world in general. That's what a lot of people say. And along with the mental health aspect, there's a large number who suffer from loneliness that also suffer from anxiety and depression. So it's a debilitating thing that's happening to many people, and certainly we want to understand it to the best we can. So if we're having the issues, what can we do about it? And if we're not, what can we do to alleviate? What if there's somebody in our group of friends, family members that's suffering quietly? We want to make sure we're not contributing to that in any way. We want to see what we can do to help. So the idea that you can feel lonely even if you have a lot of people around you, that's kind of a new thought for me. I usually viewed it in the past, if somebody was lonely, and I'll see people once in a while that they seem perhaps shy, a little awkward in talking to others, and thinking, wow, if they don't have a lot of family around or don't do anything with coworkers, they might experience some severe loneliness, and it makes you feel bad. We don't want anybody to suffer in life from that. That seems like one of the easier things to cure, but it takes effort, takes knowledge, and again, it takes all of us. Each of us need all of us, and all of us need each of us. Something else that was shocking is we see this more and more with young people, and it doesn't make sense with school and just being full of life when you're young. It seems like it should be easier to have a number of friends. Well, we'll talk about some of the reasons that contribute to loneliness, which I think might impact younger people in general. But social media has certainly been a good thing, but also a bad thing, because it's kind of taken over, especially for young people, of having one-on-one in-person relationships. They do it on social media, so there's lower quality connections with individuals. A lot of times, to alleviate loneliness, it means doing something. So it's two people or a group of people going and doing something together, and social media can only get that to a small degree. Now, is it only affecting, we talk about certain age groups, how about male, female? Well, it's affecting both, and particularly for men right now, there seems to be what some are calling not just an epidemic, but a friendship recession. I thought this statistic was pretty fascinating, that 15% of men now report having zero close friends. Zero. That's kind of hard to imagine. Um, we all need friends, but we also need close friends, those that we can count on, those that we can talk to at any time. And to have zero, that's I can see why loneliness would certainly creep in there. And then even those who used to have, there's some that had 5, 6, or more close friends. Half of those that they talked to had that. Now that has shrunk to 27%. So while there was 55% who had 5, 6, or more close friends, and in the last few years that has drastically shrunk into half. 40% of men report feeling lonely at least once a week. And men are 3.3 times more likely than women to die from deaths of despair, from suicide or overdose and alcohol-related illnesses. So men also, probably there's a stereotype that men need to be strong physically, strong mentally, emotionally, can't give in to feelings of loneliness, but it does happen. And some people think, well, they must mask it very good, and they might go to work and carry on, but inside they're suffering and struggling, and sadly it's become normalized and dangerously overlooked. And certainly we would never want to contribute to that by saying things like get over it or man up. We want to acknowledge that it's a very real thing and see what we can do to help. We don't want to add to any negative feelings and make somebody feel even worse about what they're struggling with. A key I want you to remember here, I'm going to say it here and hopefully repeat it at the end. No matter how disconnected or lonely you feel today, that's not the end of the story. There's real practical things that we can do to rebuild or to build closeness with others, to build friendships and relationships. So don't look at this as this is the end of the road. I decided that this was such an important topic that it would break this up into 2 videos. So didn't want to just ramble too long and you get tired of me. So this is going to be the end of part 1, but there's good encouragement coming also in part 2, something that we do well to give attention to. So I encourage you to smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. Definitely come back for the part 2 of this video, and you'll get some great content and info there.